Hi, so I know it's been a while since I've recorded a chapter. Life happened, things happened. All right, so we're on to chapter 9. We had a very interesting chapter of sexy time, which I laughed through. So, yeah, all right, so let's move on to chapter 9. Gage sat on the edge of the bed, watching Mackenzie sleep. He could tell from her slow, steady heart rate and even breathing that she was well on her way to dreamland. Not surprising. They'd gone at it for hours. She was sleeping the deep sleep of a well-satisfied woman. He only wished that he could stay in bed with her. She'd worn him out, too. Not to mention the fact that you were in a building that blew up. After spending hours with her, rolling around in bed, on the floor, and up against the wall, he knew she was the one. Period. He believed to his very core she was the woman he was supposed to spend the rest of his life with. He glanced at the clock. Over 100 hours. He needed to move. Even though every fiber of his being demanded he climb into bed with Mackenzie, wrap his body protectively around her, and never let her go. Perversely, that was part of the reason he had to leave. Mackenzie was in his life now, and that meant she was in danger, unless he dealt with Hardy. Putting it off would only endanger Mackenzie even more. He scribbled a quick note on a scrap of paper he found on her nightstand, something about needing to get more condoms and donuts. He didn't think she'd wake up before he got back, but if she did, he didn't want her to freak out and leaving the apartment looking for her, or thinking he'd left her. Gage dressed quickly and silently, then grabbed a copy of the apartment key Mackenzie had hanging on the hook in the kitchen. He checked his phone as he waited for the elevator and found that Mike had left a text with Hardy's address. Okay. There was also notes about the layout of the place, like the number of guards and existing perimeter security systems. Efficient as always. This is his work phone, I'm guessing? I mean, that's kind of incriminating. At the early hour, it took less than 30 minutes to get to Hardy's residence just outside South Lake on a wooded section of Grapevine Lake. Gage stopped his car along a quiet lane near the shore. If anyone saw it, they'd assume he was a couple near the shore. Now I'm gonna have to look at a map of Dallas. Gage stopped his car along a quiet lane near the shore. If anyone saw it, they'd assume it was a couple of kids making out down by the water. Few people, even cops, would get suspicious. South Lake wasn't the kind of place where lowlifes hung out. He waved through the trees, letting his superior night vision guide him. Thank God Hardy liked his privacy. There were not very many houses along this section of the lake. Not that Gage gave a damn. He would have found a way onto Hardy's property without being seen if that man lived in the middle of a mall food court. Gage found the perimeter fence quickly enough. It was an 8-foot high chain link deal with a few sections filled in with older mortared stone. He prowled the length of it, checking for guards, cameras, and motion sensors. He found the only 2 cameras that covered the side of the property without even trying. They weren't well hidden. It wasn't difficult to stand out of their field of view since they seemed to be aimed to catch people on the narrow, paved pathway that ran just inside the fence. Apparently, security wasn't too worried about someone hopping over the fence. I hate her repetition of words. But then again, who'd be dumb enough to trespass on property owned by Walter Hardy? Next, Gage confirmed that there were no passive infrared or microwave motion sensors, active infrared beams, or pressure pad sensors. He could have bypassed them, but it said a hell of a lot about Hardy's arrogance. There was nothing to keep a person from living onto his property except a reputation for brutality and ruthlessness. Gage had downplayed it for Mackenzie's benefit, but he'd been worried about Hardy and what the man might do from the moment he learned his identity. Gage knew he was a powerful and dangerous man who wouldn't hesitate to come after them if he believed they were responsible for his son's death. By standing up to his thugs, Gage had hoped Hardy might back off, but from the bomb at the fake meth lab, it was obvious that plan hadn't worked. Hardy was coming for Gage, and he didn't mind killing the rest of the SWAT team to get to him. For all Gage knew, the man intended to kill all of them anyway. Gage wasn't going to let that happen. There was a single light on in the back of the house, probably where the security guard or guards stayed. Gage would hit that first. He'd do anything to protect his pack, and now Mackenzie. We know. Why do you have to hammer that in? He didn't want to kill Hardy in cold blood, but if that was the only way to stop the man and keep the people close to him safe, he'd do it without hesitation. He only hoped it wouldn't come to that. Gage moved along the fence until he was in a dead spot between the cameras. He still didn't see any guards, but he could pick up their scent. It was blanketed by the stronger smell of gasoline, which made him think they probably patrolled the property in a golf cart at night. Since both odors lingered heavily in the air, that meant they'd been through here recently. He found a place where the fence was screened by low-hanging limbs of a big tree and placed his hand close to the chain link, but not quite touching. He didn't feel anything that indicated it was electrified. Gage looked around one more time, then letting the claws on his right hand extend to their full length. God, that felt good. He hadn't done it in a while. Didn't he just... There wasn't a lot of call for it in his day-to-day work, but he missed being able to let go and shift like that. Why not do it at home? Like, there's nobody watching you. Why not just shift? He slashed at the fence, sending pieces of chain link flying and opening a gap large enough for him to step through. Once he was on the other side, he listened carefully, but there weren't any sounds coming from the house. As he crept slowly through the trees along the rear of the property, he considered what he knew about Walter Hardy. He owned 3 different houses in the Dallas area, the other 2 being penthouse apartment downtown. He used one mostly for business meetings, and for those times he stayed in the city. He had given the other to his 26-year-old son, Ryan, the presumptive heir to the Hardy name, fortune, and business. I'm guessing he has 2 sons? There was no Mrs. Hardy, so Gage didn't have to worry about that. Ryan's mother had divorced Walter and disappeared back to some place in Eastern Europe years ago. I'm confused. So was it Ryan that got killed? I mean, I know I can check, but do we really care? No, we don't, right? Gage kept moving toward the back door of the house, pulling on gloves as he went. He still had no idea what he was going to do once he got inside, but didn't want to leave fingerprints regardless. He was about 15 feet away from the back door of the house when it opened, and a big man in dress pants, a white shirt, and a military buzz coat walked out. Shit. Gage thought for sure the guy had seen him, but one look at the man's face changed his mind. He had that sleepy-eyed look of someone who'd just gotten out of bed, probably a guard starting his shift. Gage closed the distance between them, landing a solid right cross to the man's jaw before he knew what hit him. Gage caught the man and lowered him to the ground, then dragged him into the shadow of the trees. It wasn't until he checked for a pulse that he realized the guy was one of the goons who'd come to the restaurant the other day. He didn't bother zip-tying the man or stuffing something in his mouth. He'd be in and out of the house before the guy even woke up. That's pretty arrogant. Gage darted a quick look around and then jogged over to the house. He tried the door jamb just to see if he'd get lucky. Well, damn, it was unlocked. He quietly closed the door behind him, then soundlessly made his way through the darkened kitchen and down the hallway toward the room he'd seen with the light on, the one where the security guards hung out. Their scent hit him before he even reached the partially open door. Gage paused outside the room to do a quick recon. 2 men sat on the couch, their backs to the door, their attention focused on the video game they were playing. That's stupid. They were so busy annihilating pretend monsters with their pretend weapons that Gage could have shot both of them and they never would have seen it coming. I'm sorry. I'm just so fucking bored with this right now. Instead, he moved up behind them and punched one in the temple, bouncing his head off the other guards. Before the second guy could figure out what the hell happened, Gage hit him with a ridge hand strike to the side of the neck that knocked him as unconscious as his buddy. Well, okay then. This might have taken even less time than he thought. Gage was heading for the steps when he almost walked into someone coming out of the bathroom. He recognized Roscoe Patterson's ugly mug at the same time Hardy's enforcer recognized him. Patterson reacted faster than the other goons. Instead of reaching for a weapon he had no prayer of getting a hand on, he lashed out with a quick jab straight at Gage's face. If Gage hadn't been a werewolf, the punch would have landed and probably made him see stars long enough for Patterson to go for his weapon. But Gage brought up his forearm, blocking the blow and connecting with the other man's wrist hard enough to break something. Patterson didn't even flinch. He merely shifted his stance and whipped out a knife with his other hand. Blah, blah. Gage jerked back, easily avoiding the blade, then caught Patterson's arm just as he went in for another strike. The man's eyes widened. That's right, asshole, I'm faster, stronger, and a hell of a lot more dangerous than you are. Gage delivered a jab to Patterson's chin, following it up with an uppercut under the jaw, then a roundhouse kick that sent the man tumbling back 10 feet to crash against the wall. Patterson slid on the floor, the knife dropping from his hand to land on the wood with a horrendous clatter. If the noise hadn't been enough to wake up Hardy, nothing would. Shit. Gage mounted for the stairs, taking them 4 at a time. Hardy was probably on the phone to the cops even now. Wouldn't that be ironic? A murdering scumbag calling the cops to protect him from another cop? But when he reached the top of the stairs, it was to find Hardy bursting out of his bedroom, a gold-finished automatic in his hands. Before Hardy could pull the trigger, Gage closed the distance between them and wrapped his hand around the pistol, ripping it out of the man's grasp. He shoved Hardy back into the bedroom with a growl. Okay, Gage, not a very good man who reads character well. I mean, really? This guy's a murdering fucking scumbag. You really think you can come and intimidate the dude? I think that might just piss him off. That's like someone trying to intimidate Donald Trump and thinking there will be no repercussions. I mean, God. Well, I mean, no repercussions of consequence. He'll just talk about you on Twitter. Gage followed as the man stumbled back, continuing to push and shove until he moved Hardy all the way back to his bed and knocked him across it. You! Hardy shouted. I'll have your fucking badge for this. He tried to get to his feet, but Gage pushed him back down. That might be a bit difficult since I'm not wearing a badge at the moment. Hardy's heart sped up as he suddenly realized there weren't any other cops there shouting orders or waving warrants. There was just Gage and the gun he'd taken from Hardy. The fastest way to make his problems go away was to kill Hardy, and if Gage was smart, that's what he'd do. Then fucking do it. But then, we still have, 80 pages left of the book? Hardy slowly inched toward the head of the bed. Did he have another gun in the nightstand? Gage hoped so, because he couldn't kill a defenseless man in cold blood. It just wasn't in him. Oh, boo-hoo. He only hoped Hardy didn't know that. Gage found a chair and moved it closer to the bed, positioning it so that he could look Hardy in the eye while pointing the man's own gun at him. Damn, a Desert Eagle mark. XIX? Wow. 109? I'm not going to calculate this. I don't care. In titanium gold, no less. He really hated it when scumbags carried such nice weapons. You tried to kill me and my team yesterday. Hardy eyed the gun as he shook his head. I have no idea what you're talking about. I was at a meeting with the mayor all day yesterday. As a matter of fact, we spent some of that time talking about your out-of-control SWAT team and about how you killed my son. Why the fuck is their mayor having lunch with a scumbag? Gage leveled the gun at the space right between the man's eyes. Do you think I care that you had one of your people set the bomb or make the call to Lewis there? You made it happen, which is all that matters. Hardy's gaze nervously darted to the gun again. And as for your son, you know as well as I do that he signed for his own execution order the moment he decided to kill innocent people. Hardy didn't respond to Gage's statement, but he didn't deny it either. You won't shoot me, he finally said. Gage could tell by the man's erratic heartbeat. Hardy really didn't believe that. I just walked into your house all by myself, put down 4 guards like they weren't even there, then took this thing away from you like you were a 2-year-old. Gage gestured with the Desert Eagle. Tell me again why I won't do exactly anything I want. Clearly, Hardy had been under the assumption that if he held out long enough and kept the conversation going just a little longer, his men would come running to the rescue. The man had spent most of his adult life scaring the hell out of people, but Gage wasn't scared, and Hardy knew it. What do you want? Hardy demanded. If you wanted me dead, you would have done it already, so what is it? Money? Typical. The bastard thought all he had to do was wave a wad of cash in someone's face and all his problems would go away. Gage bit back a snarl. I don't want your money. What then? Gage stood up and moved closer to the bed, keeping the pistol trained on the bullseye he'd mentally painted on Hardy's forehead. He didn't want to kill Hardy, even after what the man had just tried to do to his pack. Gage couldn't just execute him in cold blood. Didn't we just read this? That would make him no better than Hardy, but he had to make Hardy believe he would kill him, so the man would be scared so shitless he'd back off. It's really simple, he said. If you ever make a move against me or anyone close to me again, I'll track you down, kill every one of your guards, and rip your fucking heart out. To make sure Hardy knew he meant every word, Gage jammed the bolt carrier back so hard he ripped it off the rails. He tossed both pieces of the weapon on the bed beside Hardy. Is that easy enough for you to understand? Hardy didn't answer. He was too busy staring at the Desert Eagle Gage had just destroyed as easily as if it had been made of plastic. Gage let out the same low-throated growl he'd used when he wanted to force a member of his pack to pay attention or behave. He had the same effect on Hardy. Do I make myself clear? He asked. Hardy swallowed hard. Yes. Then we're done here. With that, Gage turned and walked out. Gage walked back into Mackenzie's apartment just before 6 a.m., including the stop at the store for donuts and condoms, a purchase that had earned him one hell of a strange look from the cashier. He'd been gone for an hour and 35 minutes. He didn't hear any movement coming from the bedroom, so he left the donuts on the kitchen counter and silently made his way to that direction. The sun was peeking in the window at Mackenzie, who was huddled under the blanket fast asleep. She looked so beautiful it made his chest hurt. Gage stripped off his clothes and set the economy-sized box of condoms on the nightstand, then climbed into bed. He pulled her into his arms and buried his face in her silky hair, breathing in her scent. God, she was like heaven. Mackenzie mumbled something unintelligible and pressed herself back against him. He tightened his arms around her, holding her close. He hadn't intended to do anything more than fall asleep with her, but she wiggled her bottom against his crotch, making his cock harden. He stifled a groan and tried to put a little space between his heart-on and her very, very warm, soft ass. But it was impossible. Even though she seemed to be completely zonked out, she scooted back even more and rotated her hips in a very sexy dance that made his cock poke her in certain places completely on its own. Mackenzie stirred. Ah, hell, he might be dead tired, but apparently certain parts of his anatomy weren't. Reaching for the box of condoms, he couldn't think of a better way to start the day. Max snuggled into the pillow with a sigh. Was that bacon and eggs she smelled? She inhaled deeply. Damn, it was. Gage was making breakfast for her, which meant he must have run to the store because she hadn't bought bacon and eggs. Okay. Alright. Which meant he must have run to the store because she hadn't bought bacon and eggs in forever. Normally she didn't eat stuff like that, but she was starving. Not surprising. She and Gage had worked up quite an appetite last night, not to mention this morning. She smiled at the memory. She'd been awakened at an insanely early hour by Gage's very hard cock slowly sliding into her very wet pussy. He'd made slow teasing love to her as they spooned together in bed. He had moved in and out of her from behind, while only one hand caressed every inch of her body, her face, her neck, her breasts, her stomach, her thighs, her clit. Oh yes, her clit. It was without a doubt the most romantic sex she'd ever had in her life, and afterward all she could do was pull his arm around her and go back to sleep. Now he was making breakfast for her? What has she done to deserve this man? It was hard to leave the cozy nest of blankets, but she forced herself to climb out of bed. And what the fuck is wrong with bacon and eggs? She washed her face and brushed her teeth, then pulled on the first piece of clothing at hand. Obviously. Gage's uniform t-shirt. Of course. I mean, girl does not have an entire chest full of fucking clothes. But if she was wearing his t-shirt, what was Gage wearing? Eager to find out, clearly nothing. She ran a brush through her hair and hurried out of the bedroom. The sight that met her as she walked into the kitchen was even better than she'd imagined. Her big, strapping lover was at the stove wearing nothing but those really tight boxer briefs of his. Wow, he had a great butt. Mac went up behind him and wrapped her arms around his stomach, pressing herself against him as she kissed the warm skin of his back. He smiled over his shoulder at him. I'm sorry, that's not what it says. My mind has decided not to read the words on the page. He smiled over his shoulder at her. You could have stayed in bed. I was planning to bring this into you. She ran her hands over the muscles of his chest and abs as she rested her cheek against his back. As much as I like the idea of breakfast in bed, I don't think we would have gotten to the bacon and eggs part if you served them to me dressed like this. He chuckled as he finished cooking the eggs, half a dozen over medium by the looks of them, and transferred them to the plates where the bacon and toast were already waiting. She couldn't help but shake her head as she watched him work. He moved with the quick grace of a person who'd been working on a grill for years. She couldn't flip an egg to save her life, which is why she always made scrambled, when she had them at all. I can go put on some clothes if you think you'll be distracted, he said as he carried the plates to the table. The coffee was already poured and steaming. Shoot me. She shook her head as she sat down. I don't want to put you in any trouble. I'll have to control myself. He slanted her a sexy grin. You can always give me back my t-shirt. I would, but I prefer you the way you are. Gage attacked his food. It took her a little longer to get her eggs and bacon cut up, but when she finally took her first bite, she found herself eating almost as fast as he was. This is really good. It's just bacon and eggs. Oh, the dialogue, so enlightening. She took another forkful of both and then followed it with the bite of the toast he'd already buttered for her. It's better than anything I could make. Gage took a swallow of coffee. I could give you a few lessons if you're interested. It's just fucking bacon and eggs, dude. She wouldn't mind getting some lessons from him in the kitchen, just not the kind he was talking about. I have a better idea. If you keep making breakfast for us, I'll make sure you always wake up hungry. How's that? The heat in his eyes made her swoon. Deal. She took another bite of toast. Oh, Jesus. Really? Couldn't they have just said, oh, they had breakfast? So what's on the agenda today? If we assume that you're planning to follow your doctor's orders and get some rest. He wiped up his plate with the rest of his toast, then popped it in his mouth, devouring her with his eyes as he chewed. She wondered if he was envisioning all the different ways they could have sex together for the next 2 days. If so, she liked the way he thought. I thought we might just hang out together if that's okay with you, he said when he was done chewing. But I guess I need to run to my place and grab some clothes and stuff. How long is this chapter? Oh my god, it's so long! It keeps going. She eyed him over the rim of her mug. Seems like you have all the clothes you need, if you ask me. He chuckled. Well, I don't have a problem with that. I think we'll have to leave your apartment at least once. You don't have enough food in here to keep us both going for a whole weekend. Mac thought about how much he'd eaten last night and this morning. He'd consumed about 3 days' worth of food in less than 24 hours. Yeah, maybe they need to go out and shop some. Okay, she agreed, but I'm coming with you. I want to see where you live. Sounds good. Just don't hold what you see there against me. I don't spend a lot of time at my place, so it's not as nice as yours. She steeled herself. When a guy says something like that, it usually means he hadn't cleaned it in a month. It turned out that Gage's place was nothing like what he described and a lot cleaner than she expected. It was a first-floor, one-bedroom apartment with a tiny eating kitchen, an equally small living room, and a guest bathroom. It's probably less than 800 square feet total, but while there wasn't much in the place, what was there was neat, organized, and dust-free. She couldn't say the name for her apartment. I'm just losing all interest in this book right now. I'm going to pack a bag, Gage said as he headed for the bedroom. There's some soda in the fridge if you want it. She didn't really want a soda, but she did want to check out the fridge. You can learn a lot about a man from what he had in there. Like the rest of the place, Gage's refrigerator was clean and organized, and way better stocked than hers. In addition to soda, beer, and bottled water, there was a variety of lunch meats, cheeses, and condiments. Gage was obviously big into sandwiches, but a look in the freezer showed a distinct lack of TV dinners. There was plenty of meat, though. Maybe the two of them should hang out over here. They definitely eat better. She grabbed one of the bottles of water and wandered into the living room. Gage's apartment lacked that cozy feminine touch. It was sparsely furnished with a utilitarian-looking sofa and matching chair. It was also sparsely decorated, with the exception of one wall that held a dozen framed photographs and a few military-themed knickknacks sitting on a shelf in the bookcase. She found herself smiling at the pictures of Gage in various military police settings. He was younger than the military ones, but she still recognized him. Most of them were of Gage with 8 other men, usually hamming it up for the photo, with their arms around each other or with their various weapons held casually in their hands. Gage looked really happy in all the pictures. The clothing had obviously changed in the most recent pictures, with Gage wearing the standard police uniform in some, civilian clothes in others, and his SWAT gear in the most recent. She couldn't help noticing that while the poses were very similar in all the recent photos, Gage wasn't smiling in any of them. It made her feel like as if she was witnessing a loss of innocence from one frame at a time. She noticed something else, too. While Gage was easily the biggest man in any of the military photos, it didn't compare to how much larger he seemed in the most recent pictures. She moved back and forth, comparing him over the years. It looked like he not only put on muscle after leaving the army, but grown a few inches as well. I think I'm going to stop here. I mean, yeah, I'm going to stop here. It's not like... We'll get to this. I'll promise I'll try to do the rest of the chapter tomorrow because really, ugh.